program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Howdy ho, everybody. Coming to you cordless. It's Tuesday night, May. It's May 5th, 2026. I am Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 347, if you're keeping score at home. Our guest tonight is BRUCE WOLFF, and Bruce is the founder of Brigade Air, which is a missionary organization for pilots and people into aeronautics, and he's got a new book out, and he joins us from Clayton, North Carolina. Hi, Bruce. How you doing?
Hey, Jim. How are you, sir?
Hey, before we even get started, so do you want to explain exactly what Brigade Air is?
Sure. Brigade Air was founded in 2000 as an early recruitment program for young people in an attempt to turn the tide of shortage for missions aviation and humanitarian aviation. People say, well, what's that? Well, most places missionary work goes on outside of the United States and outside of Western Civ, Europe included, where there's no roads, there's no infrastructure, there's no electricity, and an airplane is used for the IT, for communications, and for transportation.
And that's exactly what I was wondering. I think most people are not aware of that. So let's put your book on the screen here. Your book is called Finding Hope, Navigating an Obscure Path. It's doing pretty well. Bruce, tell us about yourself. So you grew up in Africa, but my impression is you did not have a particularly wonderful childhood.
Well, that's a mouthful. Let's see. Grew up in Africa. That was one of, 27 or so places that we lived when I was growing up. So, Dad was in the Navy, and then he was a missionary with the Salvation Army, and they appointed him as the principal of the Salvation Army Training College in Lagos, Nigeria. And prior to that, we lived all over the southern states, North, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, you name it. And both Mom and Dad were from New York City, so I had no idea about that. And we moved to England in 65, and then to London, from London to Lagos in later the same year, and arrived in Africa just in time for the Biafran War. So they were shooting at us, so we evacuated there in 67, went back to New York City where my folks were from, and it was like Pluto to me. So
as a child, you didn't spend any time in New York, huh?
No, in fact, the term they use for a missionary brat such as myself is a third culture kid, and simply means that I grew up in a different culture than where my parents came from, and then wind up there later, and their culture is completely foreign to me. It might as well have been Pluto. And
how old were you when you got there to New York?
Well, I was in 67, so I was 8 years old, and we'd spent just about 2.5 years in Nigeria, like I said, and wound up there, bad timing. While a war started. It's still called today, the Biafran War is called Africa's bloodiest coup. They don't really know the numbers, but somewhere between 1 and 2 million people were either starved to death or slaughtered with machetes and shot. It was all over a fight over oil fields, and we happened to be there when it started. So.
I'm gonna cut way ahead here. I asked this question of a lot of people on the show, partly because I'm naive and partly because I don't know the answer, so it's not rhetorical. Why do humans kill each other so much?
Oh, let's see. I think that goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden and this guy named Cain and Abel. Yeah. And the first two born brothers one murdered the other. And it's kind of been, I wouldn't say in our DNA, but there's definitely a spiritual leaning of all of mankind ever since that time. So I think the Bible describes pretty accurately and with painstaking detail, what does this mean, a sinful nature? Well, it's been there from the beginning. We've got war and rumors of war that's coming up again, right? We're heading into it one more time because just haven't had enough yet.
Your father was a missionary.
Yep.
Let me just ask straight out. Did you guys get along?
Oh, my dad? No. Dad was a hit first, ask questions later kind of guy. And then he preached great on Sunday. So a kid growing up with that kind of conflict had a lot of homework to do to go, what in the world is real here? What, is it the walk or the talk? Which one?
And the reason I ask that is because most people in your position, you either people who basically kind of either embrace what their parents did or they reject it, and you embraced it even though you didn't have a good time.
Well, I'm embracing it now.
Yes. How do you get there? It's like,
what?
That's the thing. I mean, I know your book's about this, and we want.
I was just going to say, how do you get there? You got to buy the book.
Right. But give us like the 5-minute encapsulation, okay?
Okay. All right. We'll try. So, it's actually one of the chapters in the book is about mitigating mom, and the other one's about discerning dad, or dealing with dad, but however I titled that. But I recite probably 15 or 20 preachers' kids who are all over the map, who either completely rebelled against what their parents were all about, or embraced it. And Franklin Graham, he's one of them. Yeah. He started out as a rebel against Billy Graham, his dad, and look what he does today. It's amazing.
I gotta admit, Bruce, I didn't know he started out as a rebel. Is that true? He did.
Oh. I've actually got his book right there on the shelf called Rebel with a Cause is the title of Franklin Graham's autobiography. So, but anyway, the short version is, growing up with a dual messaging, it was two things at once. Do I believe what he's talking about, what he says, or do I believe the way he's treating his family? Dad had a lot of baggage from his childhood. He grew up rough. His folks split up right after World War II, and it was pretty bad for him growing up in New York City. Had a lot of stuff he hadn't worked through, and then he starts a family like a lot of us do. And so he brought some of that stuff with him, and as a kid, all I knew was avoid him. That belt would come off so frequently, hit first, ask questions later kind of guy. I wondered how his pants stayed up. So, it was that kind of an upbringing, and man, I was just absolutely ready to run from all of it. Until there was a crisis several years in my own life, through my teens and through early years in college, where I found out that God he was preaching about, that Jesus in the Bible, it's real. And I had some stuff to deal with.
Until then, you didn't buy it?
Well, what do you do when you're a little kid, right? I mean, every time the church was open, we were there. Sundays and Wednesdays, and I think I cleaned the church floors under the pews with my shirt because I'm just trying to get away from.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but that doesn't mean you bought it. No.
That means I absolutely didn't buy it. I wish I could have gotten away. I wanted to run away from it. Are you kidding me? In fact, things came to a head. I think probably by the time I was 17. That's in the book too, where my mom said something really weird to me. So. Back up a half a step. Dad didn't live very long. After all of that, he died of ALS at the age of 36.
Oh my God.
Right after we had evacuated Nigeria, we came back to New York, and he started to show symptoms at the age of 34. He was dead by the time he was 36. I was only 11.
Yeah.
So now, wind forward. Mom's remarried. We're in a better place with a better man, et cetera, et cetera. And we're having a conversation in the kitchen one day. And this was one of those things that began to wake me up. And she said this. All I asked her was, what do you think that was all about? Dad and all those moves. And what was God doing with all that? And she, unfortunately for me, I wasn't thinking ahead, but she was stirring something on the stove in a pot with a wooden spoon. And I didn't put two and two together when she pulled that spoon out and shook it at me and said, you need to thank God that he took your dad out when he did. I just come in from playing basketball outside. And
that's pretty shocking.
And I said, what do you mean? She said, because if he hadn't, you would have. Oh, a reflection going, okay, so maybe there's something going on there I need to deal with, because I didn't have a rap sheet. I didn't kill anybody.
Yeah.
Clean with the law, but hey, apparently the attitude was showing through. And I had to really come to grips with the fact she was right. I think if I had the opportunity, maybe I would have. I don't know. I didn't buy it then. But that was the beginning of a long process through the rest of high school and college of beginning to deal with what was going on inside of me and what was I going to do with the rest of my life with this conflict. It begged a response. I couldn't just ignore it and walk away from it. And I slowly began to look into things and realize that, yeah, I had a sin problem too, just like those two guys in the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
You settle the score, right? And you're going to take care of things. You say, why do people kill each other? Well, I could look in the mirror and come up with a couple of good reasons why I might have been that guy too.
Yeah, but I have to ask you, well, like, why aren't you? How come some people end up figuring it out and some people don't?
Well, some people rebel against God, and some people run to him and realize, wait a minute, that's the one thing I'm missing, is a relationship with my Creator. And it's the real deal. You come to him by faith, and it doesn't, you want him to show up and on your terms and, in your way. That's not how this works. I mean, he created us.
I don't mean to belabor the point here, but why?
Yeah,
go. Why do some people? Okay, so you ran toward it, and some people run away from it. What's the difference? Why do some people do that, and some people don't? Do you have any idea?
I can't speak for them. I can't speak for them, but I'll tell you what. I have over the course of my life met enough people that spent an awful lot of their life running away from it, and then realized, wait a minute, like I did, what am I doing? This God of the Bible actually does care about me. He loves me. Instead of this idea that he's just going to cramp my style and he's going to tell me no, like the big guy with the white beard in the sky and throwing lightning bolts at you and all this kind of figment of who God really is. That when I began to understand that the Bible itself is something that humanity has tried to rid itself from for thousands of years now, they're not able to do it. And actually, God's been protecting that. I mean, you can go, that's in the book too, hundreds of dictators, not just Hitler. He tried to burn all the Bibles in Germany. Why is this still here? Why is it still the best-selling book of all time? Why is it the very first book that was ever printed on a printing press by Gutenberg back in the 1400s? Maybe God's trying to get something through to us here. And it's not just heavy stuff for memorizing, facts and dates and places. It's actually a love letter from the Creator. When I began to see that, it changed my heart. I softened. I began to pursue God instead of running away from him.
I've always said that the reason this is stuck around is because Jesus's message and teachings they are still so radical in their purity that you basically can't discount it. I mean, it's like that's the thing. I mean, they're so pure, and it's like, in so simple, and yet in that sense it's so radical because people don't want to deal with simple truths. I think. I don't know.
Well, it is simple and radical, but better than that. The Bible describes Jesus is actually God Almighty came down to us in a man's body.
Yeah,
he took on flesh. It's not just a smart guy. I mean, he is the embodiment, according to what the Bible teaches. He's the embodiment of who God really is. He became a man, and this whole point of why was he here? He's also holy, and that's something we don't get. Nothing in this life is holy, right?
So, but let me ask you this. I'm once again not a rhetorical question. Did God do this because people weren't believing? Was this basically like an "I'll show you"?
In a way, you could call it that, but even better and bigger. Where God lives, he's not bound by time and space. He's infinite. He's eternal. He's always been there. And so in the book of Romans, it describes the process of him creating us. He knew before he even created the world that his son Jesus was going to be rejected by humankind. And he did it anyway. I go, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense to me as a human being. I go, if I was to buy, say, a grandfather clock, a kit to build my own grandfather clock, right? And I start to put it together and I realize there's bent parts, there's missing parts, there's broken stuff in the box. What do? You take it back to Costco and you get another one that's made right. God's got a different way of doing things. This project, he knew it was going to result in sin and rejection and death and mayhem. The stuff you were asking about at the beginning of this discussion. And he did it anyway. And when he did it, it cost him his own life to be that sacrifice for my sin and your sin and everyone's sin. And Jesus lived this perfect sinless life and did it voluntarily. His Father, God the Father, sent him, and he did it saying, you can count on me. And he obeyed perfectly, and he was that spotless sin, as the Bible describes him in a Jewish sacrifice sense, the spotless Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. He did that, and it's available by faith to you and to me. And I certainly was going the other way and started to give serious consideration and say, wait a minute, am I going to do just like everybody else? You know, am I just going to run from this and do things my own way? Frank Sinatra, you know, do it my way. Right. And end up where? Well, I felt the need in my own heart that where I was heading was not good. And thankfully God in his grace and mercy let me find him and let me turn around. And you know what? That choice is still there. It's available to everybody. When people are looking the way things are going now, politically, the country, politics, your show gets into a lot of that, I'm sure. You know, what is there left after the USA is wiped off the map? There's a question. It's not a place I care to really be here, but I know something is coming that's bigger and better than that. Is because in the Bible, we're also taught that Jesus is coming back physically. It's not an idea. Bodily, he's coming back to get those who have walked by faith and placed their faith.
All right, so let me try a hypothetical argument with you. If and when Jesus comes back, will anyone even recognize him?
Oh, Bible says he's going to come, and it says all eyes. Now, physically, I don't know. Is that going to involve Elon Musk and satellites? I don't know. But, you know, how do you see one spot on a globe?
Right. That's actually my
everywhere
question.
All around. So physically, right. I can't explain that, but I also can't explain the speed of light. And God made that. Yeah. So, you know, I can't explain a lot of things. The Bible says he made everything we see with just words. He spoke words. And this is what happened. Poof. Well, I like what I see out those windows. It's pretty cool, you know. And the way he made the world the first time, the Bible gives a lot of hope. Is that when all of this has been dealt with, when he has vanquished sin and Satan, he's a real person, in case you haven't looked around, you know, you can see it coming out more and more every day, if you ask me. Yeah. When that's all done and dealt with, we got party time for eternity in his presence. No more sin, no more death. That's what the Bible actually promises. That is something I've watched how my life has gone since, by faith, I gave my life to him. And there's promise and there's hope, even in the midst of the messes, right?
Bruce, did you have a seminal moment? And I know that's probably, if it's in the book, you probably want people to read that too. But did you? Yeah. Oh,
it's in the book. Yeah.
I have a better seminal picture. I'll just put it on the screen here. There it is. Yeah.
So good. You saved me the trouble. There you go. And in case that didn't work, I got another one right there behind me, you know. All right. Yeah. Seminal. So, yeah, it really is in the book. And there were steps leading up to that, but it was a discovery that I had to separate for me to deal with the past and all that. My dad was abusive, you know. And then besides that, it was the gypsy lifestyle, all those moves and stuff. I grew up without a sense of identity. I didn't know where I was from.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, my first few years, we listened to the old tape recording when we were a kid on those little 3-inch tapes Dad used to do, you know. And I hear a Southern accent from this kid growing up in Greenville, South Carolina, right? And then I hear it again years later. We're living in England, and I got a little bit of a limey thing going on there. And I go, what? And that's still me. And then we're in Africa. Then we're in Africa, and I go, I don't know where I'm from. I don't know what that is or who that kid is. So, you know, there was that whole disconnect and that identity thing going on, plus the abuse and blah, blah, blah. So I had a lot of irons in the fire to deal with here. And I'm telling you, that the gospel made the difference in my life when I was able to do finally one thing, and that was separate the man from the message. All right. I always threw it all into one basket, going, oh, this is what Christianity is. That's what faith is.
But if you're young and a child, that's easy to do. I mean, that's kind of almost like, no one's going to, fault you for doing that, I don't think.
Oh, yeah. Well, fault, not fault, but I mean, there's a deception wrapped up, and the Bible describes the sins of the father being handed down to the second and third generation. I think that's the mechanism right there. As a kid, you have to trust someone. You're a child. God created it that way, and he wasn't being cruel. It's sinful, selfish people and abusing children and thinking of themselves. A friend of mine used to say, he said I think he said it was a Pennsylvania Dutch expression. I couldn't confirm or deny that. But he used to say, first comes me, after that comes you, but not for long.
Yes.
It's right. A description of how stinking selfish every one of us come into this planet.
I've never heard that before. That's great. That's actually fantastic. Yeah. It is.
But not for long. So if we're all that selfish, what happens to true childcare? We got a culture built on what? And I don't know what we got going now, but the time AI and all this loss of jobs and CBDCs and all this stuff that they're trying to shove down our throats these days, right? By the time that happens, I don't know what we got left. But up till now, double income, no children. Remember that phrase?
Oh, yeah. Right.
I mean, that wasn't that long ago. It was 80s, right? So a family could survive with mom and dad and not have, so that's it. So I guess he who dies with the most toys wins, if you really have to live at that level, right? But what about those kids? You wonder why so many of us come in so screwed up. I think it's right there. Selfish people have children. And the selfishness comes out in a lot of different ways. It came out of different ways for me, too, with my kids. They had stuff to get over. I'm still working through relationships with several of them that, frankly, a couple of them I haven't talked to in a few years. And that's not my choice, But did I make mistakes? Yeah. I didn't beat my kids the way my dad beat me, but I got other stuff, And working that through with them as adults is a trip. Ask how many parents out there today, and it's a modern thing now where, kids just off you. They kick you off the island, like Survivor, on the Survivor show, they cancel you. Why? Because you don't fit their script.
I don't have to bring this up. It's impossible to be a perfect parent. I mean,
I was kind of hoping still, but
well, yeah, everyone does. It's impossible to do it. It is, especially if you got more than one kid because they're different.
Right? Yeah, and the Bible even talks about that. It says, "Bring up a child," and the way in Proverbs it says, train up a child in the way they should go. Well, the actual language that's written on says, "Train up a child in their own way." Ooh. Well, if you got 5 of them, like I did, they got 5 different ways.
Right.
There's a challenge.
Right.
What worked for this one, scratch that. Doesn't work for that one, right?
So Bruce, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but are you a believer in reincarnation? I mean, a lot of people think it's anti-Christian. So,
well, okay, one time, actually, it's not anti-Christian. The idea that it happens over and over and over again is a Buddhist or Hindu belief, and no, that's not taught in Scripture. The fact that after death, physical death here, if Christ has not returned yet, the Bible promises that, actually, that the dead in Christ will rise first. Okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah, new life, eternal life, actually doesn't begin when he brings you back. Eternal life, according to the way Scripture teaches it, happens at the moment of faith in Christ now. That's the beginning of it. Your body dies, and he fixes that just like he did when Jesus came back after 3 days, right? But the seminal event you asked about, to be clear, was separating Dad from the message he was trying to preach. And as time went by, I realized, whoa, this guy grew up with a mess of stuff of his own. In fact, I think the rejection and the stuff he went through as a kid, some people have described as someone with 3rd-degree invisible burns. Ooh, try to get close to somebody who's had that raw of a deal and still living with those emotions. It's like they have no skin emotionally. So what happens when you bump into that guy?
Yeah.
You don't realize that he's hurting. He overreacts and he gets angry and he gets all these things. I never saw my dad. I couldn't see him that way as a kid. I understand him now. That's in the book too.
In your epilogue to the book, you wrote that life's tough and always has been, which is a common thing. But here's my question, and that is, do you think one of the problems we're having as a society is that on a material basis, I'm not talking about emotional, on a material basis, for many people, life isn't that tough anymore? Is that screwing us up? Or first of all, do you buy that? And if it is, do you think it's screwing us up?
Well, I think, I don't know how much you read, but you just missed it if you didn't keep going on that one. Do you ever watch you ever watch
oh yeah, Sanford and Son, right?
Sanford and Son, yeah.
That, yeah. Uh-huh.
Right? Lamont, life tough. It even tougher if you're stupid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? I love that one.
That reminded me of actually Senator John Kennedy, but it's like something.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, yeah. I think again, the view of mankind, the worldview, scriptural, biblical worldview is what we're talking about here. It's the only thing that makes sense to me. Is because it fits. Every time I've challenged, every time I've doubted, I get back to learning, what does it really teach? It's not what you think. And people just don't spend the time to dig in. And what does the Bible really say? So there's your start. If you want to know what the heart of God is about people, about money, about this, about that, well, Jesus clearly said you can't have God and money as a God at the same time. You can't, right? In fact, it's one or the other. He said that. You can worship, you can serve God or money. They can't coexist. Why? Well, what is money about? It's about me getting more powerful, right? Grabbing all I got. And now what? I'm God. They get enough money. Look what's happening. What we call globalism. What all this stuff's about right now is people with the billions, the technocrats, all this kind of thing, right? What? Wanting to put the rest of us under their boot, right? The United States is in the way for that to happen, so I guess we'll have to get rid of the United States. We're all hearing it. We're all understanding it from a different perspective than we were 10 or 15 years ago. So if I'm worshiping money, that's all about me. That's about me becoming more powerful. Wealth is a thing, right? We complain about people like George Soros. And what is it about it we don't like? Whatever he wants, he pays for. Yeah. And ultimately, people name their price and they will forsake their job as an attorney general, as a politician, as a whatever. You give them enough money and all of a sudden their principles vanish in lieu of money. That's worshiping money. Right?
It is. But the thing, I don't understand. I mean, I talk about I've always said this on the show to many people. I'd love to interview Soros because I don't understand where he's coming from. I don't understand, and here's the rhetorical question I'm going to ask you that I've asked a lot of other guests on the show, Bruce, and that is, why do humans have such an enormous desire to control other humans? I don't really understand it. I don't. Maybe I'm naive. Go ahead.
No, I think you're hitting on it. Is what it is goes back to that snake in the garden again. Mm-hmm. God made it beautiful and he made it awesome. And he gave Adam and Eve the whole shooting match, right? Except for one little conditional thing he put in there, which was what? Don't eat the fruit of that tree, right? Now there's a moral choice they could make. Were they going to trust him? We don't know how long they were there, in years, in God's presence before sin entered the picture. There's no timeline. They don't give us a stopwatch for that, right? Mm-hmm. But they had a relationship and a walk that was based on trust, and he was there. He's talking to him, right? Then he says, don't eat of that one tree. And what do? Well, this snake, the embodiment of Lucifer, comes into the snake, and he's not, he didn't come with a pitchfork and horns and breathing fire. He came just quiet, and you just imagine a whisper, and the doubt, the seeds of doubt were put into her mind right there. Did God really say that? First thing he did, I'm just asking a question, right? Sounds like a court scene, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So just ask the question, and now she had a choice to make. And ever since then, and you can't blame Eve, because as soon as she comes to Adam, they're complicit. They're doing this together, right? From that moment, sin entered the world. And that union, that communion with God was lost for a time. It's coming back, but there's a long stretch here, and we're working this out now. So yes, why do people want it? Because it's a choice, just like she ultimately made, just like Satan had made when he got thrown from heaven before this scene in Genesis happens. You're God or I'm God. You know, I'm in charge of my destiny, or I'm going to bow my knee to you. There it is. It's a choice of rebelling or succumbing and obeying, and in obedience, realizing who he is. And then you willfully want to give up to him. See, so it's a choice of who's going to control. You're asking why is it good? I think that's it. I think it drives everything we do in our lives after that point. I'm going to be in charge.
I gotta hand it to you. That's the best description I've ever heard. That's the best answer to that question I've ever heard. And
well, that's from the Bible. I didn't make that one up. I'd like to get the credit, but
well,
it's in there.
You and Sanford.
Oh no, Lamont.
Now I lost my train of thought. It's terrible.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll go get his hat here in a minute too, if you want.
But the thing is, humans want to be God, and we suck at it.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Seriously. And I look at a guy like Soros. I mean, I'm so fascinated by this guy because he lived under the Nazis. He grew up completely stone cold broke. He comes to the United States. I've had economists tell me and finance people tell me that actually his theories about making money don't make any sense. My accountant thinks he stole it all. So I don't know where he got the money. I have no idea. But now he's got all these billions of dollars. He doesn't want anybody else to have any. I mean, I just find this hilarious, And then of course, when you know anything about capitalism, there's really no finite supply of money. There's the thing about capitalism, and I don't have to tell you this, I'm sure, is just because someone has more money doesn't mean you have less. I mean, that's not the way it works. So, it's like, I don't understand. I don't understand any of this. Why, what's the point? Just take your money and go to your island and have a good time. It's like, Jesus.
No, they're not satisfied with that. And what is the deal? Until I see myself, what is all this digital about? Oh, come on. So there was this tower in Babylon. Built out of stone. And because, stone and mud can only go so high, I don't know that they were going to get very high with it. But anyway, the message was clear. God, we want to reach the heavens. We want to be God.
Yeah.
We're coming up there to challenge you. I'm sure I had him shaking in his sandals, right? Right. And what did he do? He knocked it out and said, check this out. None of you are going to be able to communicate now. No. You can't communicate. Well, that kind of screws things up. Every war fought since then, it's true. If you can't communicate, you can't fight, right? So God created all this. He knows. He tore that sucker down. He tore down the Tower of Babel. And he gave us time. I mean, creating all these languages slowed the pace down. If you don't see the spiritual battle going on, because what does Lucifer want? Why did he get thrown out of heaven? He wanted what? To be equal with God, right?
Yeah.
And now the Bible describes him as the prince of the power of the air. For this season, God gave him a domain here. And by that, like a good judge would say, now you're culpable, right? Now you got how many millions of people that you've deceived, and they're following you. And they think, just like you, they can be gods.
Yeah.
I think it's an infection. I think it's absolutely a spiritual disease, if you want to call it that. And it happens for our own choices, our attitudes. And this rebellion against God and this rejection of what the Bible teaches and this rejection of the free gift that Christ provides for us is what it's all about. You talk about Soros. I don't get it either. Jewish, and they hid that name, right? They changed it, right? Nazi sympathizer. Oh, they were Jews. They got out, right?
Yeah.
Most didn't. And here we are today. So you look at that life and you tell me what the point is in the backdrop of this cosmic battle between good and evil, God and Satan. Only it's really not a battle for God. He already won. That's what him dying at the cross and coming back to life was proving, that even death is subject to him. That you kill me. And, you know, the Bible, it really is wild when you think about this. We think, oh, who rose Jesus from the dead? Jesus said, put me in the ground, and in 3 days, I'll be back. Not Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Jesus, right? You know, I'll be back. He rose himself from the, I mean, that's power over life and death. And there's the picture, but he did it through humility and love and gentleness and patience. That's the character of God that the devil doesn't want us to see. And that's who I had to discover before I found myself wanting that relationship and go, wow, I've been missing this all along. You know, and he's the best caretaker too. Is that, you know, you work for him and they say the benefits are out of this world.
Yeah. I can't get over the fact that people don't realize the fact that the only thing you die with is your memories of what you did. It's like, you know, you're not going to take any stuff with you. You know, it's just, I don't know. I just find that
they say there's no U-Hauls in a graveyard, right?
Yeah, right. That's right. Right. So how did you start Brigade Air? What was the genesis of this? Okay.
So once I resolved the stuff about my dad and figured out what God wanted to do with me, I knew I had good technical skills and influence of other people who were following the Lord and were working in this kind of work, and said, you know, a guy like you could really do a lot of damage. I mean, you know, you could do some good stuff, do a lot of damage to the enemy, maybe we'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And so I listened to that advice. I'd been working in industry. I was an estimator and designer for an electrical contractor between Wilmington and Philadelphia, and had a family already, and graduated from college, was paying off school loans. And through that, it was a slow process of beginning to understand little by little. That, by the way, chapter 3 in the book is called The Lamp, and that's what that's about, is the little by little, one little step at a time. Began to put the picture together that, hey, God needed, you know, in missions, which is taking the gospel and building the kingdom of Christ rather than my own little empire, right?
Yeah.
I began to realize that this was the thing my dad wanted to do. My mom said he was actually pretty good at what he did, his preaching and stuff. I mean, the Nigerians loved him. But they didn't live with him, you know. So here I am now, a generation later, getting over that and finally say, well, all right, Lord, well, now I'm yours. What do you want me to do? It's sort of my Damascus Road moment, if I can call it that, like the Apostle Paul, you know. Here he is, a killer of Christians. And what does he wind up doing? He became the greatest missionary of all time, planting churches all over the Mediterranean, right? And so realizing that, you know, how did God wire me? And I was a history major in school, and I loved to do the reading and research, but the other part of my brain, I actually got to use my hands, you know, kind of a left brain, right brain thing. And I realized, wow, I'll go to school again. And I went to aviation school down in Tennessee, and Moody Bible Institute in Chicago had a program down there to train missionary pilots. They've existed since 1946, I think. And I went there and went back to school with a family in tow. And so 3 years of Moody. Airframe and power plant is a mechanic's license from the FAA to fix what you fly. Because the places you're flying in these remote spots around the globe, you don't pull over and get something worked on.
Right, right. Of course. No. You're probably in a field somewhere in the middle of nowhere, you know.
A field would be nice. That'd be perfect. Over jungle canopy, that's a little rougher, you know.
I bet. Yeah.
So fix what you fly. So the first year at Moody is the AMP certificate as an aircraft mechanic. And then there's 2 more years of flight training. And you private pilot license, instrument rating, commercial pilot license, and a whole bunch of a ream of other things you can do, multi-engine, flight instructor, you name it, all these ratings while you're there. So I stuck it through and got my flight instructor certificate, and then I've taught on and off for 35 years. But that was with the goal of going into mission service. And so after graduating from school and paying off school debts, it was 3 years of school and 3 years of paying for it. I did everything from sell insurance to flip hamburgers to spin wrenches on airplanes, and then served with a group out in Tucson, Arizona, and flew in and out of Mexico in support of church planting and Bible translating missionaries down there in the Sierra Madres Mountains. That's where I began to realize, wow, there's nobody doing this. This is, we're short. Someone's got to do something here about recruitment. And that's where Brigade Air came from. So we started Brigade Air in 2000. I left the mission in 99. And so since that time, we've had just about 200 week-long camps, only a dozen campers, age 13 to 18, 3 or 4 volunteer pilots, a couple of airplanes, all loaned aircraft and volunteer pilots now since 2000. And through that program with those about 200 camps, we had over 4,000 kids, a dozen at a time, in 21 states and 6 foreign countries in the last 25 years, accident and injury-free. And
that's actually amazing. That's absolutely, I read that.
And doing it for about the cost of what a soccer camp would cost. You know, so again, God is amazing. Follow him, trust him, obey him, a step at a time. And this was impossible for me.
So Bruce, do you actually teach some of the kids how to fly? How does that work? Or what?
Okay, the week-long program was not flight instruction. You can't do that in a week.
I didn't think so. Right.
Even with the brightest kid, it's an exposure. It's to get them hands-on time and excite them about we take them through phases of, this is what navigation would look like. This is what physiology in an airplane is about. This is what the air traffic control system is about. Landings and takeoffs. We're not trying to get them to solo an airplane in that week. And even though I'm a flight instructor and the other guys with the program are certified flight instructors, we're not doing that. These are exposure flights only. And that's how we did it for these years. There's others out there. In fact, Moody Aviation is now doing this. And some of the organizations we've worked with, JARS is one of them, JAARS. That stands for Jungle Aviation and Radio Service. They're the IT and the transportation department for Wycliffe Bible translators. And they're based south of Charlotte, in the same state I live. They've been in existence for 75 years now. Most people never heard of this, right?
Yeah.
But they're the transportation, the IT and communications for frontier missions. We say frontier, we're talking about roadless people on planet Earth. Right. And they're out there.
I know that.
There's a billion of them, billion roadless people. So JARS is one, Mission Aviation Fellowship is another. We started our program, Brigade Air, with both of those organizations. They're 2 of the largest missionary aviation sending agencies on the planet. And they eventually, both of them took over the program, rebranded it, but they're still going today. So they use that as an early recruitment program because it works.
And are you also trying to get some of the kids to become interested in, I don't know how you put this, the missionary work at destination? In other words, you know, that maybe they're not that interested in the flying aspect per se, but what happens after you get there? Is that also part of it?
Okay, what happens is, for instance, someone like MAF, they provide transportation for like-minded missionary organizations that need them to get into these places. I mean, there's Bible translating going on and language study by Wycliffe Bible translators in places where there's an indigenous group of people that have never had a written language. Think about that. It's all been verbal. It's been handed down for generations. It's spoken language, but they don't write. Well, what Wycliffe is all about is putting a Bible into their hands. So what do? Missionaries go in there, it takes them 20, sometimes 30 years. And they're living in a spot that has no roads, no running water, no electricity. But someone can cut an airstrip, and now they have air support. They have air ambulance. They get supplies. They get the mail. They get fresh meat sometimes flown in on a small plane in that village, enabling them to do that work. And for that long, hard to believe. It's off. You don't see this from the States here. We're in the land of bigger, better, faster, and more. And frankly, the church doesn't. An awful lot of the church in America doesn't even know this is going on.
I just find it amazing that people on the planet, the 8.5 billion people, live in such completely disparate environments. You know, it's like, you know, I'm used to sitting here asking my AI questions, and you know, and they're shooting at you know, I don't know, jungle cats or something. I mean, you know, it's actually amazing. It's you know, and
Yeah.
people don't understand the disparity of what's going on. You know, I mean,
Listen, if you want a little 5-minute intro to that, it's on our website. It's on on our homepage when you land there, and it's the first thing you see is a video that's 5 or 6 minutes long, and it's titled 1 billion roadless people. And our website's brigadeair.org.
right.
Brigadeair.org. When you land on that page, you're going to see that video. Just click on it because that's what it's about.
I can only put one thing on the screen here, so I just, you know, usually it's your book, but I was thinking, yeah, your website's at brigadeair.org. And I'm going to put your book on the screen here one more time. Yeah, well, hold it. I am, aren't I? Yeah, there I am. And we want to mention the fact that if you go to faithfultext.com, which is the website of the publisher of your book, and type in and use the promo code. Yeah, hold that up. Thank you. I'm going to go back to you. 25th, 250th B Day. Use for the coupon code, you get 25% off your book. And I didn't know this. You said that this publishing company is run by I'm sorry.
Ollie North. Ollie North. Actually, he founded it. Yeah, it's retired Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North's publishing company.
Right. That's pretty cool. Hey, Bruce, I can't thank you enough for joining us. I hope you'll come back sometime. So I was going to ask about AI, but we've run out of time here. So,
yeah, I have a hard enough time with real intelligence. Never mind artificial.
No, I know, but that's actually the question. I mean, I have a lot of people. I have a guy named Bruce Trilly who came on the show. He's an AI executive, and his big thing is, I have a lot of people talking about this, that AI will never truly become sentient because it has no soul. And that's I totally agree with them. I think that's a fascinating concept. But here I'm talking about it, and you're not.
Well, that's okay. I know enough about it to say, you know what? I think that time for Jesus to return to this planet is getting close. I'll just say that.
Well put. Well put. Thank you, Bruce. Thanks a lot. You take care.
Bye bye. Right, take care. Bye.
Our thanks to Bruce Wolff there. Who would have thought of starting a mission revolving around flying? I just find that kind of fascinating. Once again, you can see the website of his missionary at brigadeair.com. No, .org. Excuse me, brigadeair.org. We're a little over time with that, so I don't have a lot of things for Footnotes tonight, but this is Footnotes for Tuesday, May 5th. Ashley Graham, who I don't know if you remember this woman, she's a plus size model. She's bitching about the fact now that basically the GLP-1 drugs for weight loss have ruined the body positivity movement, because now everyone who, let me just cut to the chase here. Everybody who's fat is now taking them. So instead of trying to justify their weight, now they're losing weight. And she thinks that's terrible. And I don't. Because here's the deal, folks. Being fat is unhealthy. And that's what, 5-7 years ago, if you said that, you got thrown under the bus. People should love themselves just the way they are. Yeah, you should. But still, it's better to be thinner. That's all there is to it. It's physically unhealthy to be fat. And I'm fat. And so it's like, I know how this works. As a matter of fact, I'm supposed to go on Zepbound here shortly, but with me, it's different. And you should know about this if you don't. I've been prescribed Zepbound by my doctor, brilliant Dr. Laura, whose last name I'm not going to mention because besides the fact she doesn't want to be associated with the show, she's way too swamped with business. I mean, it takes right now, if you're new, it takes months to get in to see her. So, but the thing is, I don't know if you guys know this, but Zepbound is the only drug that's been approved to treat obstructive sleep apnea. And I have sleep apnea, and I can't use the CPAP machine. Well, here, first of all, I have no trouble sleeping. So I have sleep apnea, but I have no trouble sleeping at all. None. Matter of fact, I'm one of these people that can fall asleep anywhere, anytime, any place. I can just do it. Now, maybe that's because I have sleep apnea. I don't. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I generally don't sleep that long. I sleep about 7, 8 hours a night, but I have no trouble falling asleep. But sleep apnea has been, or Zepbound is the only drug that's been actually approved to treat sleep apnea. And I asked Dr. Laura, I said, is it just because I lose weight? I mean, everyone knows when most people have sleep apnea are overweight. Everyone knows that. And she said, no. She says it actually has an effect on your lungs. It's besides the fact you lose weight, it has a completely separate effect. And so, anyway, I'm going to go on that. And yeah, because I wouldn't mind losing a few pounds. I want it, but that's not the reason I'm actually taking it. And that's only the thing about sleep apnea is only for Zepbound in particular. It doesn't apply to any of the other GLP-1 drugs. Anyway, Ashley Graham's getting on the horn. She's bitching and moaning about the fact that people don't, love their fat bodies anymore. Fuck. I know. It's like, no, being fat is unhealthy. That's all there is to it. And right now I'm unhealthy too. And I know it. I know that. I'm not going to try to say, oh, I love myself, blah, 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 blah. So there's a park in, I want to make sure I get this correct, Staffordshire, England, called Cannock Chase. I've heard of this place before. I don't know if you've ever heard of it too. It's a park, and it is it's notorious for years and years and years for paranormal shit going down there, particularly a lot of Bigfoot sightings. Now, this is only cropped up. This is only cropped up in the last couple of weeks or so. People are reporting seeing a 7-foot tall man with the head of a pig. The pig man. This is not Bigfoot. This is Pigfoot. I don't know. But people, this is a legitimate thing. People said they've seen this thing. It's 7 feet tall, so which is tall. It's very tall, and it has the head of a pig, but the regular countenance of a man. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. We haven't talked about Bigfoot on this program for a while. Our old friend Larry Newman, unfortunately, I've reported this before. I think it was on Halloween of last year. Larry had a very bad stroke, and I've been in touch with his wife. But he just got out of the hospital. He was in the hospital for months. I don't know when or if he'll be joining us in the future, but our hats off to Larry. But the thing with Larry is Larry was an actual investigator for the Bigfoot Field Research Organization. I've told this story many times because I think it's important. He started with them as a skeptic. They asked him to join because he was a police investigator and he knew investigation protocol. That's the reason they asked him. They said, would you help us? And he said, yes, even though he did not believe in Bigfoot. But then he said, one night I'm in the Ozark Mountains in the middle of nowhere. And he said, it's so pitch dark, you can't even see your hand in front of your face, but they had infrared cameras. And Larry said they watched a family of Bigfoot, mom, pop, and baby Bigfoot, 3 Bigfoot, through an infrared camera for the course of an hour. And he said at that point he was sold, And so the thing, we've talked about this on the show too. There's 2 different theories of what Bigfoot is. There's Larry's school of thought, which is I think the majority of people probably subscribe to, and that is Bigfoot is an undiscovered primate. It's just something we haven't caught yet. And and you think, well, why not? Why haven't we caught it? History is full of this stuff. And I mean, I bring this up. The giant squid was rumored for 2,000 years until one was finally caught in 2006, only 20 years ago. They finally caught one, even though people were talking about it 2,000 years ago, sailors. So this happens. This does happen. But there's the other point of view too. And Stan Gordon, the famous Bigfoot investigator who actually started in the UFO field, but kind of switched over to Bigfoot. I mean, his thing is he's been on the show, and I've had a lot of other people on the show said the same thing. There seems to be a paranormal aspect to Bigfoot. Specifically, there's a lot of people who say they've seen Bigfoot and also seen it disappear right before their eyes. That poof, it's gone. And so, most animals can't do that. None that I can think of. So, there's that. There's a theory, and this is getting really, really in the weeds, and I don't know what to think here. Although, here's the deal: I will tell you, I am at this point, the betting money is on the fact that Bigfoot is real. Whether it's one of these two things, I don't know, but I've come to the conclusion. I've talked to enough people now that I think if I'm going to put money on it, I would bet that Bigfoot is real. I'd say 70-30, but I don't know which one of these theories. But the second theory is the fact that Bigfoot might be some sort of animal that is somehow naturally interdimensional. In other words, it can switch through two different places. And we talk about this interdimensionality on the show all the time, and be like, well, what the fuck is that? And I understand. And this is so I had Tom Vernon from the UAP Files, which is on the show last week. We were talking about this, about the fact that there's some people who think that the government doesn't want to talk about this because they don't think the public would buy it. And that is that the majority, if maybe not all, of the UAP sightings actually come out of a different dimension. Who can buy that? So there's a common theory, and it might not even be theory, it might be a scientific fact now, that these spacecraft are getting here not by going faster than the speed of light per se, but by switching dimensions to do it. And we don't even know a clue about that, although this just happened about a month ago. A bunch of scientists have discovered that maybe the fermion subatomic particle might have something to do with interdimensional travel, because they've done tests with this thing, and apparently it acts really weird. So I don't know if there's this, or they're just getting started on this. But they think they might be onto something here. But the idea of interdimensionality is that the fact that we're here on Earth, and there could be a being or entity that's sitting next to you, and you not only can't see it or feel it, you never would. So it's just a very, very strange thing. But people said they've seen Bigfoot disappear. So I don't know. I hope Larry gets better. God bless you, Larry Newman. I love that guy. I really do. Larry's been around forever. I mean, I've been doing this show in various incarnations, going back to Calling News for 6 years now. And I can't remember how we ran into Larry, but Larry from the very beginning, he was involved. And finally tonight, I knew this was possible, but I didn't realize this was such a commercial thing. There's something called ABBA Voyage. Have you heard about this? It's the group ABBA, the band ABBA, Dancing Queen, Mamma Mia, all that sort of thing. So they've gone on tour. Now they're all in their 70s now, believe it or not. You're that old. You are. They have sent holograms of themselves. Well, actually, I don't think they've actually gone out on tour, because from what I understand, to get this to work really well, you have to have a permanent setup. But there's a place you can go in Sweden or wherever the hell it is where you can see them perform, but they're holograms. They're not real. They're three-dimensional projections, but of course they look real on stage. So they look like real people doing this, but they're not real. And the holograms are based, of course, on the original members, so they look like the original members. It's basically you're watching the real band play, except it was the real band 40 years ago, and it's not real. They're holographic projections. Well, now there's a whole bunch of bands that want to go on tour doing the same thing. Once again, they're not on tour. Basically, you have to do it, and you can't move this stuff around from venue to venue and expect good results. So the deal is they set it up on one single venue and tune the venue to do this. And like, for example, Kiss is thinking about doing this at the Sphere in Las Vegas. Perfect place for this. So the thing is that, so you get to watch your favorite band and basically get to watch them on stage as they would look in their prime, right? This is going to become a commercial thing. I just find this just fascinating, utterly fascinating. The band that's been floating it right now is the Spice Girls. They're thinking about doing this. They can't see, the five of them can't seem to get their shit together to go on tour. It's something's always up. Posh Spice is, married or whatever. I don't know what the fuck is going on. I have no idea. And, sometimes I don't care either, but, But yeah, so the thing is, the idea is that they would, in some arena somewhere, they would basically have a permanent residency where the Spice Girls would perform every night, and meanwhile the real Spice Girls are 70 years old and in bed sleeping, and they're making money. Now Lisa Kudrow just came out. She just released this about the fact that she says that she's been making about $20 million a year off the residuals of Friends. That's for not working, folks. $20 million a year for something you did 30 years ago. It's like, God, I mean, this is the reason people get into these businesses. The same with the music business, because the residuals or the royalties over time, if you have even one hit record, you can laugh at those one hit wonders, that you've been seeing over the course of the last 50, 70 years in music. That one hit can make you millions of dollars every year forever. So it's freaking unbelievable. The other thing in music, I spent most of my life in the music business, is that the actual money goes to the songwriters, not the performers. And most people don't even realize that. That's so the thing is, you want to write the song. You don't have to perform it. You want to write the song to get the money. And the performers, if they didn't write the song, they don't necessarily get any money. That's the weird thing about how this works. But anyway, now it's like they're applying this basically to arena performing. So that's going to be really interesting. The bands that are thinking about doing this right now are Spice Girls, Queen, the Ramones, Kiss, and here's a real amazing thing. Elton John told his kids that under no circumstances were they ever to let anybody do this after he died. He says, I'm out. Forget it. We're not going to do this. Tomorrow night, folks, we have a really interesting guest. Solomon Schmidt is going to be here. He has just released the first biography of J.K. Rowling. He's the first person to do it. And apparently it's a jam-packed book, and we're going to talk to him about that. That should be really fascinating. We're taking Thursday night off. We'll be back next Monday. I don't know who's going to be on the show on Monday. I think I know, but I don't want to say for sure. So at any rate, you will, we're back on Monday. We're back tomorrow. What am I talking about? Yeah, Solomon Schmidt tomorrow. Once again, thanks to Bruce Wolff. Really appreciate it, Bruce. Very interesting conversation. Thank you. Good night, Uncle Donnie, wherever you are. And good night to you, wherever you may be. We'll see you tomorrow night, everybody. Solomon Schmidt will be here. Take care.